Okay, with that in mind, we're going to now look at Isaiah 52:15. He's threading now the third comparison. Remember we saw Kasher Shamemu Aleka Rabim Kemishchat Meish Marehu. You had the Ka and the Ken. That was in 52:14. He's bringing now a third Ken. Ka and Ken are really the same word. The noon gets inserted depending on what's the next word. Alright, so you've got Ka, Ken, and Ken between 52:14 and 52:15. So when he begins 52:15, I should just tell you what it says first. Here's the verse in Hebrew. Ken yazeh goyim rabim alai yitpitzu malachim pichem ki asher lo supar lachem rao wa asher lo supar lo shamu hitbunanu. Okay, Ken means like. Yazeh is the Hifil imperfect of Nazah. Goyim, of course, means the peoples. Goyim Rabim, it's really an idiom for all the Gentiles. So you've got Goyim Rabim. So now this verse is talking to you about how the Gentiles are affected by what's going to happen to the future king of the Jews on the cross. Okay, Ken Yazah. Yazah means to sprinkle, or Nazah means to sprinkle. And it's a technical word that's used for sprinkling on the mercy seat that was in the temple. Once a year you'd have the Day of Atonement, which we today call Yom Kippur. Yom means day. Kippur is sort of an anglicized pronunciation for covering. Okay, so Ken Yazeh means, and just as he will be caused to cover, sprinkle, atone for. It's an idiom for atonement. Goyim Rabim, the Gentiles. Alai. Now, Allah, that's the preposition Allah again, and that means going up. It specifically derives from the smell of the sacrifices, the rising of the smoke. And it's a sound play on El, for, the prefix for God. And it's spelled with an ayin instead of an aleph, but the sound play is the same. So, alai means to go up. Alright, it's an ayin, lamed, yod, vav in spelling, with the vowel points being the two, the A sounds with a segol. Now you've got the next, okay, so that's the first clause, and then you've got yikpitsu. Okay, that's cal imperfect of kafas, and it means to close or to shut. And then you've got malachim, which is kings. Pichem is their mouths. It's in the plural. So yikpitsu means that they will be shutting their mouths in amazement. You're going to see the translation on the screen there. They'll be shutting their mouths in amazement. Kings will be shutting their mouths in amazement. And again, that's why it's in the cal imperfect. Now notice, okay, wait a minute. Okay, malachim pichem, and then you've got the next clause, which is ki asher. Ki is because. Asher, here it's accented on the last syllable. Asher means who, which. It's our relative pronoun that we saw back in 52:14. Lo is Hebrew for not. And then supar, this is a really clever word. You see the dagish in the P there? The P looks like an upside down G, capital G. You see the dagish in there? That makes it hard. If you have an F sound without the dagish, and it's a P sound with the dagish. So the dagish being that little dot. Alright, supar is a really important word to talk about because it's talking about an accounting. It's an accounting term. It comes to mean recounting a story where you're trying to get the facts in order and tell it in a way that makes sense and fits together logically. So it's talking about he, because, that's the key, he who, asher, lo, not, recounted, supach. He who is not recounted. And it's in the puel perfect, which is really important. The PL is an intensive stem. But this is puel, which means it's passive in that they're receiving a recounting. Alright? It comes to mean, you've heard of the Sefer Torah and all that, the book. But this is the verb. So it's saying he who was not told to them. That's usually the translation. But told is really not the right way to translate sapar. Supach. Because safar is talking about an accounting. God wants you to understand why. He wants everything about God makes sense because he's ultimate thinking. So when he accounts himself to you, and here it's the accounting of Christ, to the Gentiles, when he does this accounting, he makes it make sense. And what he's basically saying here is ki asher lo supach, those who did not have Christ accounted to them. Lachem, they will, to them, they will see. Rao. That's from Ra'ah. That's in the Cal Perfect. So let's go back through that again. Ken yazeh, just as he who is going to be the meaning of it, just as he who is caused to sprinkle, atone for, goyim rabim, the Gentiles, alai, up to Father. Alright? Ken yazeh goyim rabim alai. Yikpitzu, malakim pichem. Yikpitzu will be shutting up in amazement the mouths of kings. So in English, in good English, you'd say the kings will shut their mouths in amazement. Ki asher lo supach, because he who was not accounted to them, lachem, to them, they will see. In Hebrew, you've got to stick the to them in front of the see. He's actually using it that way to stress it. Alright? So good English would say, Ki asher lo supach lachem rao. Okay? He who they did not know, because he who they did not know, or he who was not accounted to them, they will see. Because rao is in the Cal Perfect. It means it's a completed. They will come to have seen him. Alright, now let's go through the last clause. Wa'asher lo shamu hitbunanu. Okay, lo asher, wa'asher, and he who, lo shamu. That's also Cal Perfect. Lo again means not, no, not hearing, not listening to, not obeying, not heard of, really, is what's in view here. Wa'asher lo shamu hitbunanu. Okay, hitbunanu. Okay, shamu, I better cover that first, is the Cal Perfect. He who they did not hear of. Who they did not listen to. Who they did not obey. Shema means all those things. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, is the famous Deuteronomy 6:4 command to hear God. Okay, well, they weren't hearing him. They either weren't hearing him because he wasn't explained to them, or they weren't listening when he was explained to them, and even if they were listening, they weren't obeying. So it's got the semantic range of Shema has all that in it. And here Shema is in the Cal Perfect, third person plural, which is why it's Shamu. Okay, and then the last word in the verse is Hitbunanu. Hitbunanu. It's from Bin, B-I-N. That's a yod for the I. And it's got the dagish and the B. Okay, this is in the Hith Polel. Alright? And it comes to mean cause to intensively understand. It's got, the Hith Polel has the concept of being caused. It has the concept of intensiveness of the PL. And it has a concept of reflexive or most especially passive, where you're getting it done to you. Alright? So ben means to understand, consider, perceive, be prudent, or regard. Here it's talking about understanding, because it's in parallel with rao, okay, in the previous clause. So hitbunanu,